Alright, so we are going to do now an editorial look. My very first step is I'm going to use some lip balm on the lips, but you will see that a clear lip balm is actually really important for editorial look and not only for the lips. So I'm start applying first onto the lip, and then what I will do is I'm going to check if my model got any patch with a bit of dry skin. So sometimes there is a little bit of dry skin here, very tiny. I'm just applying a little bit of lip balm on the side of the nose, and I check she has just a little bit on the chin as well. This is really important. Skin prep is really important for editorial because any little skin, any patches will appear on the photo. So what I'm doing is with the lip balm, I'm just simply massaging a little bit with the cotton tips, and you can probably see that this is going to help me removing any little skin. And I can do this without having any access to water. This is why it's a very good tip to prep the skin. If you see any other patch of dry skin, feel free to do that as well. I am now going to use a priming spray. So basically it's a bit of emollient as well. This is going to help the skin get ready for skincare and makeup application. I'm just simply spraying generously onto the face. And then I will use a brush to really massage this product. I have previously cleaned very well Leah's face with micellar water and applied toner as well. For editorial, I want the skin to be very well moisturized. So I'm applying here a mix of an oil-based primer and a serum, which is really moisturizing. To really have the dewiness, you can see that oil give a bit of natural dewiness in the way it reflects the light. And that's what we want to have when we do editorial, that kind of skin which is not really powdered, very well moisturized, with a shine come through, which looks really well hydrated for a no makeup look. If the skin of your model is dry or not hydrated enough, you can even use a moisturizing sheet mask prior to the makeup application to really prep very well the skin. I'm now going to apply a moisturizer, and I apply very generously. I'm now going to use a primer. So for the primer, I'm using a liquid luminizer here. It contains a little bit of shimmer. So shimmer, we have to be very careful when we do a makeup, no makeup look. It's okay if it's for primer and it's very thin particle of shimmer, but you want to avoid having proper metallic because the texture is going to be seen from the camera lens. So I'm just applying a little bit on the top of the cheekbones, between the eyebrows, on the bridge of the nose, on the top of the lips, on the chin, where the light will naturally hit. And I'm now going to use a clean brush to perfectly blend the luminizer onto the skin. Clean blending brush. Skin prep is really important because for editorial makeup, you cannot have any texture to the skin. The skin needs to look like skin. And it's going to be your most requested look when you work for brands, when you work for advertising. You really need to know how to master a clean editorial skin. I'm now going to apply the foundation, and I'm going to use the oil-based mixing medium. So this mixing medium, it's just going to help me thin a bit the foundation and have a very dewy and very oily texture, which is great for what I'm looking for this editorial look. I can mix it into my foundation, and I'm going to apply very lightly the foundation starting from the middle of the face. Regarding the color, when I do editorial, I always choose a foundation which very often is a bit more yellow base, because it can happen that the model has the shoulder close to the face. You will see that the shoulder is very often more yellow than the face. So I apply very lightly. Some makeup artists don't even use foundation for editorial, just focus very well on a good skin prep and a bit of concealer. I don't need to apply all over the face, I'm just going to blend the foundation outwards. I am now using a clean brush to blend the foundation, and here I try to warm up a bit the foundation and to give a bit more pressure. What I want to do is to really have the foundation going with the skincare onto the skin and really have no texture at all. So I give a little push when I apply. Of course, you need to be gentle with your model face. It has to feel a bit like a massage. You can see how the skin is beautiful and dewy, but we don't see at all the makeup. I am going to use color correction underneath the eyes to conceal a bit the blue. And then I'm going to use a color matching concealer where I want to give a little bit more coverage. You have to be very light-handed if you do concealer for editorial. A skin with a bit of blemishes or breakout, it's sometimes better to leave it because it's going to be easier for the photographer to remove just the area with a bit of breakout in Photoshop than concealing it with a lot of concealer. So I'm just applying very lightly a bit of peach. Color correction is great because it helps me to conceal any unwanted undertone without adding any texture. And now I'm going to blend with a clean eyeshadow brush. I always like to leave a little bit of pigmentation just at the lash roots to give a more natural feel. So I'm not going too close to the lash line. I am now going to mix a bit of my concealer just with my foundation to make sure I have the exact same shade, and I will check if there is any area which will need a little bit more coverage, making sure that we won't see the products on the skin. Just a little bit on the bridge of the nose, a little bit in the middle of the forehead, and just a little bit here, this little redness. And I will blend using more stippling movement to make sure I'm just really dabbing the product onto the skin. I am now going to use a concealer which reflects a bit the light. So very often you can find those type of concealer in a liquid form, and they're into some pencil. For hygiene, I'm putting it on my palette first. Those type of concealer are going to reflect the light with the camera. So it's going to react very well underneath the lighting because there is some pigment which reflects the lights. I like to apply just in the nasolabial fold and a little bit at the corner of the lips. And this is going to give a beautiful volume. Most of models have perfect face proportion, and you don't really need to go in heavy contouring for editorial. You really want to give a beautiful glow and create some shade onto the skin. So here, I'm going to use a liquid luminizer, which is going to tan naturally the skin without adding any texture again. So I'm applying it and create a shape like an E. I'm going to do the temple and the cheekbones, and a little bit on the jawline, which I'm going to blend onto the neck. So you do like a E. If necessary, sometimes you can add a little bit on the nose bridge as well. And I'm now going to blend with a clean brush. Again, I'm trying to do some lifting movement just to make sure I contour well the cheekbones naturally. Before setting with powder, adding any extra glow, I'm going to create some faux freckles. This is very popular for editorial. You have many techniques to create faux freckles. You can use a toothbrush or a spoolie with alcohol-based brown makeup and just flick it on your model face. It's always a bit risky because sometimes you can just have a bit of splash in some areas. So I recommend you to train a bit before. Here I'm going to show you a simple technique. I'm choosing two pencils, one which is a bit a warm brown and another one which is a cool brown. Eyebrows pencil are actually perfect to do it. So I will start just doing randomly some faux freckles around the nose area, and basically you just do some little dot and you try to keep them from different sides. If your model have imperfection or a little bit of pimple, it's actually an excellent way to just conceal it. Now with my other pencil, I'm going to give a little bit more intensity. So it's good to always do it with 2 different colors. When you do faux freckles, it's good to keep them around the nose area. For a photograph, you need to make them a bit stronger, otherwise they're not going to be seen. So I've done a few freckles here, which are a bit stronger, and not just to give a bit more natural dimension, I'm literally just going with my lighter shade, which is a warm blonde pencil, just doing some very little dots. And we can almost not see them when I'm doing it, but you will see it's going to have a very more natural effect, like natural little pigmentation onto the skin. And then I'm going to soften a bit the bigger freckles just by dabbing them a bit with a clean brush. So I'm just now using a clean eyeshadow brush and I'm just going to soften them a bit, just like dabbing a bit so they look more into the skin, and you will see the effect is more natural. Don't soften them too much, otherwise it's not going to work for the camera. You still need to see them. I am not going to powder the skin, but very lightly, because we want to keep the dewiness. So I'm just going to powder a little bit on the chin, little bit on the bridge of the nose. And you can see I'm using a big fluffy brush. So it's just going to put a little bit of powder, but very lightly. And I pretty much don't touch the face. I will use a smaller brush, smaller fluffy brush to go underneath the eyes. And I'm just going to apply a bit more powder just underneath the eyes. This area you always want to powder to avoid to have any creases on your makeup. To create editorial eyebrows, I'm going to use a glycerin soap, a fixing spray, and some clean spoolie. And I'm just spraying a bit, some spray into the soap directly, and I'm going to swift my spoolie to create like a kind of a paste. Of course, you need to clean your soap between your model, but as it's a soap, it's not too hard. And then I'm using one spoolie with the product, one clean spoolie, and I'm just going to brush up my eyebrows and really pushing a bit to have the products going into the eyebrows and brush them up. You need to work quite fast before the soap is drying. I will just add a little bit more. If you have a little bit of product just going around the eyebrow, simply use a little bit of foundation, because sometimes you can have removability correction, and I just go like slightly dabbing the products. You have to be very picky for editorial with any small detail. To add some extra glow and dewiness, I'm getting back to my palette and my liquid luminizer, and I'm now going to dab again some liquid luminizer on the cheekbones to really keep the skin fresh and dewy. And here the tips is I'm going to add a little bit of lip balm, and you will see that the lip balm is going to catch the lights and reflect and give that very beautiful fresh skin feeling. You don't want to create dewiness or glow for editorial using shimmer, but with texture and products which are going to capture and reflect the light. I can do that as well on the top of the lips. And this is something you always need to keep an eye on the camera to make sure you might need to add more or mattify a bit if the glow is too strong. This is why it's very important when you do editorial makeup that your job is not finished when you have done the makeup. Your job is finished when the photographer has finished to shoot. For a little creative effect, I'm finishing the look applying a clear gloss on the mobile eyelid. And I have decided to don't apply mascara here, but just keeping the skin very fresh, dewy and beautiful with that vinyl look onto the eyelid. It is actually very common to don't use mascara in editorial look, to just keep that very fresh and natural feel. And if you decide to apply mascara, for example for blonde complexion, make sure that you just have the lashes tinted, but you don't actually see the texture of the mascara. I'm applying the same gloss a little bit just in the center of the lips to add a bit more glow. Et voilà.